Roll sound.
Shoes, boots, what?
Hey, take two.
Here we go.
All right, and action.
In the production, I had tremendous control because of the way the deal worked out, the way everything, the way it was financed in the end, and I was also so young that at the time that I treated it like I was making one of my 8mm films down the block with my friends. I just said, "This is what I want. There is no other. There is nothing else. It's just do it, and we have to get it done. You have to sign on. We have to do that, you know. And perhaps if it had come later, I would have been less secure, and I wouldn't have pushed as hard for the things that I got. But that's what happens when you're young and stupid."
The difference between a director and a great director is that what happens on the page is transferred to the screen in a magical way that's almost unrecognizable from the page, and that's what Singer did. Everything that he talked about in the garden of the Sunset Marquee that morning was on the screen, and more. And he, as a director, not that terribly interested in the intricacies of directing actors, but he didn't need to, because he had done his work already by casting the movie properly.
The appeal of working with an ensemble cast is one, because it gives you some place to go with the camera. It gives you other characters to look at and other stories to follow. I also like it from a production standpoint because it keeps people's egos at bay. No one feels the whole film is resting on their shoulders. If somebody gets down or a bit insecure about what they're doing, somebody else is there to pick up spirits besides just myself. So it makes it less of a full-time job for me. So I very much enjoy the ensemble cast. I enjoyed, and when I went to make X-Men, I felt like I was almost back on the set of The Usual Suspects. And when you're having a good ensemble experience, it creates a camaraderie. So you feel that the actors have found a kind of family amongst each other, and it leaves me to sort of, do my job in a way outside of that.
He understands, I think, cinema, and he thinks, I think, in cuts. He's not a director who shoots the heck out of a scene because he has absolutely no idea what he wants to do with it and then figures it out in editing later. He's very specific. I mean, we shot, I'll give you an example of fast shooting. We shot the entire interrogation between Chaz and I in 5 days in that one room. And it was a lot.
Kevin and I started the movie. It was almost like we filmed the play.
Got him all
Then
wrong.
we stopped, and then they started the movie.
Do I?
So I really didn't see anything. I didn't get a chance to see no dailies or nothing.
One of the reasons that Brian both requested and I happily agreed that I wouldn't come and see dailies was that he didn't want me second-guessing whether what was going on underneath that I was telegraphing in any way. And because I trusted Brian completely as a filmmaker and had such confidence in the screenplay, I was able to do that actually for the first time in my work in film.
I went down to visit the interrogation scenes. They shot that before the rest of the movie. And Spacey was off camera walking around with I had a friend with me, and he said, boy, this guy's a good actor, because I've seen him in movies before, and he didn't have that limp. He thought Spacey had the limp in real life. That person's no longer my friend. I don't hang out with idiots.
I know that when I worked with Bryan Singer and I got to know him, his conviction and his dedication was the same as mine. He didn't care. When we were shooting the scene in the parking lot when I shoot the two guys, that was like an 18-hour day.
That scene is a longer scene. It had to be cut there because we went into the underground car park at 8 o'clock at night, and at 6:45 the next morning we still hadn't got the scene.
With the producer saying, "You can't do this. The Bond company's on the way. They're gonna shut us down."
And the sound man was standing with his boom, and he said, "I am so sick of working with amateurs who can't get what they want. This movie will never cut together. And I wish I was at home now, because I've been working all night and this is a pain in the ass having to do this."
And Brian, I hear that, and then Brian comes over to direct me, and I'm like, he's talking to me about the scene, and I'm going, did you hear the Bond company's coming? And he's like, "So what?" And I was like, "Well, are they gonna shut us down?" He's like, "No. Nothing's gonna stop us from doing what we have to do." Now that as an artist, that's, you know, that's why I make movies. I won't compromise anything when it comes to my performance. And Brian was not willing to compromise anything when it came to The Usual Suspects.
'Cause I don't always know what I want. Very often I don't know what I want. I know what I don't want. But and if that ever causes an actor to just lose trust and then lash out, that's something I fear. But there's no actor that I know of or that I've ever worked with where that experience has happened. And we've been in some tough spots. We've been in spots where we're writing on the set together, you know, in a caucus, you know, as of actors and directors playing screenwriters, you know, and we realize that's the process. Filmmaking is a process of discovery, and most importantly, collaboration. And part of embracing collaboration is trust.
All right, you all know the drill. When your number is called, step forward and repeat the phrase you've been given. Understand?
While doing the movie, there was definitely a feeling that we were working for coffee and donuts, as was everyone else, and it was sort of guerrilla filmmaking in that regard. And yet, I don't remember too many times when we felt completely pressed for time. In fact, it was only in the day that we shot the police lineup, the infamous police lineup, where we ran into scheduling problems, and the only reason we did was because we, the suspects, couldn't get through the scene without laughing.
Behind the camera, you have Chris McQuarrie, the writer, asking the questions, to which all of the actors improvise answers. And if you watch Baldwin, for example, he sets the tone.
Number 2, step forward.
Give me the fucking keys, you fucking cocksucker motherfucker! When he did that, we all cracked up because it was just so funny.
How many keys, you cocksucker? All I remember is that someone farted. And no one knew. No one knew it was the guilty party, you know?
In English, please.
Excuse me?
In English.
The now Academy Award-winning Benicio del Toro farted like 12 takes in a row. And we could not stop laughing. Even when he stopped, finally. It wasn't the words, really, that were emoting from this now Academy Award-winning actor, as much as it was the gas that was escaping from his ass.
How many fucking keys, you cocksucker? What the fuck?
Number 4, step forward.
It was bullshit.
That just literally opened the floodgates, and then Stephen went and I went, and we all laughed, and then we tried to control ourselves, and then we cut, and then we started again, and it happened again, and it happened all morning.
Shut up, you fuck. God. Shut up.
I think Gabriel is the one who gave you this feeling that he was the most serious of them all. When he cracked up, I knew we were like in trouble. When Gabriel would crack up, it was just like, this is going south. We're not gonna get one take here, because if he's cracking up, I'm not gonna be able to stop it.
I have such happy memories of The Usual Suspects, both for the work that we did, and also for the time in between the work, because all I remember is laughing all the way through the movie.
I can't tell you how many times I heard Gabriel say, after we would screw up a particular shot, "You fucking guys," you know.
Shut up.
Can we just do this now? Fuck. For Christ's sake. And then he'd laugh uncontrollably.
Shut up, you...
So at lunch, Brian was very frustrated, and he was, I would hearken to say he was just even a little angry. And so there was a meeting that was called of all of us, and Brian really chewed us out. He chewed us out quite seriously, that we were really fucking up his movie, and that we'd better pull our act together.
And that was like telling, children not to laugh in church. And so we went back to work after lunch and proceeded to laugh even harder, and if not more uncontrollably. And felt bad about it, but couldn't help ourselves.
I don't think he ever got a take where we weren't in hysterics. And then Brian did a brilliant thing, which is that he took it and he used it, and he took our hilarity and our little unrelenting unprofessionalism that day, and he incorporated it into the film.
I said, but you can't use that in the movie. I said, because we weren't performing. And he said to me, and I'll never forget Brian saying this to me, he said, yeah, but in that moment of humor between these guys, we see a certain humanity. We see that they're just people, and they're friends. There's a bonding that actually is transpiring between them in that moment.
And to Brian's credit, when he got into editing, he realized, well, by them laughing, and if I allow myself to stray from what was originally intended, it shows an instant camaraderie, and it's another way to say fuck you to the cops.
And it's also credit to John Ottman as an editor to be able to make that work, because we never really got a take. And somehow shooting it, I knew it'd be all okay. But really, I have to credit John for really taking a lot of mistakes and manufacturing them in that way.
When they started laughing, I thought, this is hilarious, and it didn't feel like bloopers to me. It felt like the real thing. So, and I thought, what a great opportunity to get the audience to warm up to these characters now. When you see a character laugh, even if they're a horrible person as a character and a criminal, it makes them lovable in some way, and you're going to be along for the ride with these people. And so I felt it was completely necessary to use all this bloopers and somehow tie them together seamlessly where it felt like it wasn't constructed.
To see what happened from that page to what's on the screen is to understand when ensemble works as it should. It's magical.
I remember one of the first times we were all shooting together. We were in the pool hall scene when Pete Postlethwaite's character shows up.
I am Mr. Kobayashi. I have been asked by my employer to bring a proposal to you gentlemen.
What do you want?
It's a long, like 4 to 6 page dialogue scene, or even more maybe.
One job.
And
one day's work.
but I'll never forget, like, everybody's in the room, and Brian says action, and it's a 2-shot on myself and Benicio, and the dialogue goes through the room, and all of a sudden it comes to Benicio, and he goes,
"Who's that guy you used to talk about shows at in New York?"
That was, who was that guy we used to run jobs for back in New York? Let me do it again. Huh, who that guy you used to run about in New York?
Brian was aware that I was going to come out of left field, but I don't think any of the other actors were aware of that. Sometimes when you do that kind of stuff, it can look pretty pompous,
I'll never forget kind of like not knowing whether or not he was fucking kidding around or he was having some kind of epileptic fit. And I remember, clear as day, leaning, like him saying it, but he wasn't looking at me. He just like said his line, and I looked over at Brian. During the shot, I looked over at Brian, and Brian was behind the monitor, and I couldn't see him. And I'm looking, and when Brian didn't hear me cue the next line, Brian kind of leaned out from behind the monitor, and I literally looked right at Brian, and I went, like, what the hell am I supposed to do right now? And Brian, cool as a cucumber, just went, "It's okay. Like, don't worry about it. This is between me and Benicio." Oh, fine, I'm just a schmuck sitting here that's like supposed to understand all this.
Listen, Benicio, you're mumbling. Is it me? Am I crazy? I can't hear what this guy's saying. Why don't you just speak, seriously?
And at one point, I remember all the actors came to me, led by Gabriel Byrne, and they said, we all respect Benicio as an actor, and we don't mean to mess with his process, but we can't understand what he's saying. I mean, is this what you're going for? and I was like, this was before we did the prison scene, the scene in the lockup. And I said,
Is it Friday
if you don't understand what he's saying, maybe it's time we let the audience know that they don't need to understand what he's saying. So I think one of you should ask him.
So who in the goddamn piss hell stole that fucking truck?
What did you say?
One thing about Benicio, when he gets into a character, he is enraptured in that character. And this character had, you know, this affectation of speech that very often it would overcome Benicio, and he'd get sort of stuck getting the words out, and it was really something to see.
Son, the way I hear it, Jose, is the way, God damn it, this is bad. A pitiless, psycho, fucked up butcher, okay?
As an actor, trying to figure out which part makes the most sense, that one didn't make any sense. Cut to, Benicio steals every scene he's in. So, to me, it always said even more about him as a great actor, that he was able to take literally nothing and turn it into a scene stealer every time.
Maybe it was the first time I had a director that really kind of like fed that trust in you, and he really trusted what I was gonna do, and you know, allowed the risk taking from my part to grow, you know. So, you know, I had a great time. I mean, what can I say, you know?
Making a movie is, I guess, like this. You don't know what it's going to turn out like until you cut it together. And what you have in your head is usually not what's on the screen. It's one of the things that's intriguing about making movies. It's an addictive thing because you don't quite know how it's going to turn out.
First time I saw the cut of Usual Suspects, early cut, I was just blown away. I mean, Brian's visual storytelling, you only knew so much as he described it to you, you know? That's the mark of a great filmmaker, is that it can't be crystal clear. If it's crystal clear when they describe it, then you won't be surprised later. Then there's no jump to. And also the editing and the music and so many of the things obviously you're not privy to when you're doing the scenes. And the pacing and also the visual power from such a small budget.
Tom Siegel's cinematography, which made that movie, which was shot for $4 million. We shot the movie, I think, in 30 days and blew up a boat on the last day. He made that movie look like it cost $50 million because his eye through that lens also was responsible for things being slightly off, that you don't register in a conscious way, but unconsciously.
He's wonderful to work with, and he trusts me a lot too, and he always is out to do what can be done and never ever say that can't be done. You know?
I was just stunned by its style and its clarity, and its mystery, and its humor. I was just stunned by it. I didn't think it was going to really do anything. I thought maybe critics might like it, and the fact that it sort of went on and found an audience and sort of a great following since was a great dividend.
I remember one time I was standing online at a theater where The Usual Suspects was playing, but I was online for a different movie, and this woman comes up behind me and says, "Excuse me." I'm like, "Yeah." She goes, "Do you know anything about The Usual Suspects?" And I was like, "What do you want to know?" And she goes, who's in it?" I said, "Oh, Kevin Spacey, Gabriel Byrne, Chaz Palminteri, Stephen Baldwin." I looked at her and she just went, "I don't know." I said, "Well, might I interest you in a Michelle Pfeiffer film?" So at the time, now that same woman would be like, "I love those guys."
I know people stop me on the street who literally have Usual Suspects parties once a month. Like the third Sunday of every month, like 20 people go to somebody's house and watch The Usual Suspects and make notes and say, "Oh, I didn't see this before and didn't see that before." So the cult classic reality that is The Usual Suspects is one that is absolutely fascinating, and to me it's because in the end there is nothing to figure out.
Yeah, it's the film that won't go away, and I think at the end of the millennium, when everybody was putting together their top 100 films of the century or whatever, it seemed like we were on every list. Those type of things are incredible. And then the National Board of Review created a new award, the first time they had for Best Ensemble award that they gave to us. I mean, all those things are unbelievable. And then to be nominated for 2 Academy Awards and have Kevin and Chris win, you know, that the film gets 2 out of 2 Oscars was unbelievable.
Well, it's certainly the film that brought me to the attention of audiences in, I think, a way that almost no other film I'd done had. I mean, it was a particularly unique moment in my experience as a film actor, because I had done a number of films prior to it, but it just so happened that within about a 4.5-month period, 4 of those films were released, including Usual Suspects. And so I think I went from being a kind of obscure New York theater actor who had appeared in a couple of films to suddenly someone that people were seeing a lot in film in a kind of variety of parts in a variety of supporting natures. And certainly, being recognized by the Academy and having all of that sort of happen at the tail end and the beginning of the following year was really extraordinary. I wanted mostly to take all that attention and excitement that was happening in my own personal career and try to honor it by doing films that I hoped would meet a standard that a film like Usual Suspects makes.
It's so original. I think that's why that movie will be around for a long, long time. And people from generations will look at that movie and I think it will become a classic because it's so original. It's such a wonderful script. The performances of everyone in it were great. The director was great. His vision of the movie was perfect. I mean, it's like a perfect movie.
It did, open more doors and it was a blast overall. It was just like a great time, and there's no doubt, and I create a bonding with those guys every time I bump into any of those guys. It's just like we all came from the same egg in a way. I mean, when I see Kevin Spacey, it's like we know. It's almost like we went to the same high school.
As long as there are people who are creatively empowered, there'll always be the breaking of the mold. American movies, to me, and I've said this before a million times, are becoming more and more homogenous because the marketing objective, and marketing now plays such a major role in movies that it almost obliterates everything else. The marketing objective is the lowest common denominator. You can't put that in. Let's put the car chase, let's put the sex in, let's put the fight in, let's get them back together. They end up happily, they walk off, and so that there's a formulaic predictability to American movies. That, allied with the cynicism of the way movies are put together, with product placement and spin-offs and toys and all kinds of crap that have nothing to do with the telling of stories. They've turned American movies into Mac movies, so that when the moviegoer gets his movie, it's like a hamburger. He doesn't want a piece of aubergine in there. He wants his onion, his tomato, his hamburger, and his bun. And he doesn't want the bun hard, he wants it soft. And he wants it in 2 minutes.
I think it's all driven by material. If it's the right piece of material and the filmmaker has an energy that actors respond to, I think 1 or 2 really interesting actors attracts 5 or 6 more really interesting actors. And I think it happens all the time. Now, whether all the pieces fall together to make a film that resonates with certain people in a certain way, that's all up to I think very often a lot of talent and a lot of luck.
remember someone saying we opened in Paris opposite one of the Batman movies, and we stomped it. Well, they give a shit about Batman in Paris, of course we, you know.
Well, sometimes I feel like I'm in one of those a cappella groups that had a hit in 1959. And they were all from Queens, and now they're all 60, and people are saying, wow, I remember, I danced to your song in 1959. And, you know, it's great to be in a movie like this, and it's an important movie, and I'm really proud of the fact that I was in it. And but I sometimes feel like that band, because I do feel so close to those guys in one way, that we were a band that had this great hit and we broke up.
Well, after I saw the movie, I turned to Chris and I turned to Brian and I said, think about it now. The Usual Suspects, 2. You know, where is Kaiser Sose? Searching for Kaiser Sose. I said, I'm telling you, you're missing out on a franchise here.
It's nice, I think, sometimes when lightning strikes the way it has in this instance with The Usual Suspects, when the beauty of that can just be left alone and appreciated forever.
And when I'm running out of villains in X-Men, I'll probably reach back and do the X-Men versus Kaiser Soze.